So what do we need to balance when we're considering building height? The relationship between building height and public amenities, the number of parking spaces that we have, the amount of area we can dedicate to alternative transportation, all of these things are based on how much land we dedicate to which purpose. And so I want to explore the relationship between building height and unit count and look at how that affects the open space available on properties. Just take one view, a couple of parameters, and look at how they interact. Okay, so this table shows a total number of units that could be developed on these opportunity sites. There's 60 acres in these opportunity sites. If we were allowing for a total of a range between 4 to 6 to 8 story buildings, based on a proportion of 4, 6, and 8 story buildings. So in this first line, you can see there's 100% 4 story buildings, no 6, and no 8. On this bottom line, it's 100% 8 story buildings. I want to emphasize here, this is just a model to help us understand how building elevation and proportion of mix of building elevations affects unit count. No one is proposing that there be 8 story buildings throughout the district. Certainly not throughout the entire Gateway area. And so this is for modeling purposes only. We also wanted to look at what happens if you limit it to 6 stories. So instead of allowing for 8 stories in the Beryl District as currently allowed, what if we said 6 stories was the max in the Beryl District? 100% 4 stories, 100% 6 stories. So the proportions changing. And so these proportions are the same with 4, 6, and 8 as they are with 4, 5, and 6. And so we can compare the totals. If you look at this middle category, which is a pretty likely outcome, you'll have a lot of 4 story buildings, quite a few 6, and not so many 8 stories, in particular, since the 8 story buildings are only currently proposed in the Beryl District. You can see from this that allowing for 4, 6, and 8 story buildings does provide for more units, 3,841 compared to 3,555. Now, I know the first thing you may be thinking to yourself was, that's not a very big difference. So why all the consternation over 8 stories versus some lower number? I think that's a really good question that we need to explore. And that's part of the reason why we're looking at this. You might also be looking at the 4 story unit count. 100% 4 stories provides 3,269 units in this model. Now, this model fixed for things like, average unit size, and so on and so forth. So these are all relative to each other. And so you might be thinking to yourself, well, 3,200 versus 3,500, that's a pretty good trade-off too. And so why are we talking about larger footprints, larger buildings? We should be just focusing on 4 stories and moving forward. So the reason why we're exploring this is to answer that question. I wanted to look at the lot coverage and community open space that's related to getting to those unit counts. And so fixing for unit count, in this case, 44 units on a 30,000 square foot site, we're going to vary the building footprint based on the number of floors here in this exercise. And so you'll see in this plan, gray is going to reflect buildings, so lot coverage is gray. Open space is going to be green. Right now, you see the parcel that we're going to be playing with here in green. And black gives you a reference for the sidewalk. And we're going to be looking at site plan view and build and elevation. So there's going to be the side view and there's going to be the top view of these buildings in these different scenarios. So looking at a 3-story building, 3-story building, in order to hit 44 units on a 30,000 square foot lot with the parameters that we used, takes up 100% of the lot coverage. There's almost zero open space in this model. And so you can get that 44 units on a 30,000 square foot site by covering the entire thing. What happens if we look at a 4-story building? 4-story building can cover 74% of the lot, leaving that 26% open for other uses, and still accomplish the 44 units on the 30,000 square foot site. You have about 8,000 square feet of open space here. Looking at a 5-story building, you only have 59% of the lot covered. the remainder of that lot is open for other uses, still getting the 44 units on that 30,000 square foot lot. So when I go back to the example of the model where it showed that you can get just about the same number of units, all of the things being equal, out of 100% 4 stories versus a mix of 4, 6, and 8, or a mix of 4, 5, and 6. That is true. You can get about the same number of housing units. The question that you have to ask then next is, how much of that space in this area do I want to dedicate to getting those housing units? So here's where we need to weigh the policy decisions against providing more housing, providing more open space, or providing other amenities within the community. Now, reflect this green space here that's on this 5-story building. Some of that could be dedicated to the uses on that site. So you might have some private recreation space for the users of that site. But one of the core features of this program is that these new developments will also contribute to the public realm. And so we'd be able to get a tot lot, or maybe a nice corner parklet, or a seating area, or expanded sidewalks. So these kinds of public amenities can come out of allowing for taller buildings that free up more of the site for other uses.